voices on that panel. We have time for some questions if you'd like to go to the back. I have two questions. The first for you, Louise, I know you've been to different conferences like Social Enterprise World Forum in Scotland last year. Can you just give us a perspective? What do people outside of New Zealand think about what's going on here?
First of all, they're pretty jealous. The one thing that we get asked a lot is, how do you have a relationship with government in the way that you do? People are really kind of overwhelmed to think that it's as easy as it is in New Zealand compared to their own countries. And that's really evidence of the fact that not only are we a relatively small country, but a lot of government departments have recognised that they don't have the expertise to try and move things forward. So they often want to partner with organisations that are, on the other side of the coin from them. So that's been one thing we hear a lot. The other thing is that we haven't yet made decisions that some of them are regretting that they made. So when it comes to legal structures, when it comes to certainly the conversation that Dana had, is we can look at this and cherry pick the stuff that we think will be good for the uniqueness that New Zealand has. So there is a lot of eyes on us as a country. And the third thing is the power of Te Ao Māori. Both Kay Marie and I were in Scotland last year, and people were really impressed with how New Zealand, Aotearoa New Zealand, is starting to really strengthen the power of our Indigenous enterprise. And what we can do globally is demonstrate that, like Anne-Marie said, social enterprise has always existed in Indigenous enterprise. So what's the power that we can do to demonstrate that globally and to make people aware that this isn't a new thing, that this is something that has always put the people and the planet first. So we've got that responsibility as a small country this side of the world to actually influence what could happen in significant economies, and that's something we take with a great weight.
Yeah, that's great. New Zealand can be a test case in a way of what works and learn from overseas. I'm going to go to some questions at the back, but before I do that, Dana, you haven't studied New Zealand or anything, but listening to the people who've spoken today, does anything sort of stand out to you from the perspectives that have been shared?
Well, one of the things that I'm always reminded of when I participate in international panels is when thinking about how to enable a growing sector like social enterprise sector, it's really important to consider the baselines and that to recognize that the baselines differ in different countries and can even differ within countries, within different regions or cultures. And so I was very interested to hear about the New Zealand perspective that fundraising for charity is itself a charitable purpose. That's very different from the American perspective. And I've heard in speaking to others in many Commonwealth countries, the idea of a profit maximization norm is not nearly so strongly articulated in many other business organization regimes in other countries than certainly than the Delaware regime here in the US. But there's even diversity across the US, and that norm tends to be overstated even here. But if you have a different kind of baseline about what is charity and what is business, then the kinds of tweaks or accommodations that would be helpful or necessary for social entrepreneurs and impact investors to get together and to be able to trust each other's mission commitments are going to really differ. And so having a kind of sensitivity to that, I think, is so important. And many kind of ideological entrepreneurs who had come to tell about the social enterprise in their own experiences and make recommendations don't necessarily take as much account of those differences as I think is important to do in order to really be successful.
Thank you. That's really helpful. We have a question at the back.
Sure, thanks. From the product sector, and we, I think, as a sector, are struggling to work out what the mechanisms are.
Sorry, we're just going to get you to use the other microphone.
Sorry. Jenny Gill from the philanthropic sector. We in the philanthropic sector are also struggling to work out how to engage with social enterprise. And a number of you have mentioned the issues for you about applying for grants and the issues for us as funders about allocating grants for enterprises that may also be for individual profit. And it may be a question actually for you, Stephen, but I think there needs to be some thinking on both sides of this, because there's a huge pool of philanthropic capital in New Zealand, and I think there's a lot of interest in various philanthropic entities about, because it's clear that this is coming up from the sector, but at the moment I think it's not clear what the structures are that we need to be thinking about to actually facilitate that.
Can I switch? So the question is to me. Can I switch it to you? What's your feeling from that side as a philanthropic funder?
My feeling is that philanthropic funders want to be able to invest in the sector, but don't necessarily see clearly how to do that. So, for example, for a philanthropic funder to take an equity stake in something is possibly difficult. I mean, we can give funding to Akina because they're a charitable entity, but when you actually come to the business itself, then it gets more complicated. So I think we need some clearer legal structures on both sides in order to be able to facilitate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jenny. And you have been one of the leaders in this conversation for a long time around Philanthropy New Zealand and others. So it's really exciting to think of the conversation that we can have post the launch of our research, because it actually pulls in exactly that. And we know that philanthropy are a significant enabler of social and environmental outcomes. So how can you feel supported in being able to make decisions more than the ones that you can make now? And whether it's from granting or whether it's by the use of your endowments and obviously leading into impact investing. So it's really exciting to think of the conversations that are ahead. And I know we will be working very closely with you, and particularly Sue from Philanthropy New Zealand, to get that voice and the needs of the philanthropic sector included in the conversations with central government.
And I think what could be helpful is some legal models
Absolutely.
that identify how you might proceed to be an equity investor, how might you proceed if you just want to make a straight grant, how might you proceed if you want to do debt or loans.
And the incentives that may be possible as a result of that, which, if you look at France and other countries, they have that. So, how do we explore that as key stakeholders altogether, which is really where we want to get to as the next step of the launch, from the launch next week.
Yeah, I was going to say, Louise, you should do a report and maybe release it next Wednesday.
we may well do that next and the Law Foundation, great charity helping us with that. So.
That's great, thank you. I think just to pick up a little bit on that, I know there's another question at the back. The fascinating thing is to think about these paradigm shifts that are happening and worlds colliding, right? And think about 30 years ago, if you got on a plane, there was a lot of people smoking, right? And today, that just doesn't happen. And in the same way, if we think about investing, what do people invest in? They're looking for commercial returns. I think in the future, people are going to be saying, well, yeah, I want to get some return, but what else are you giving me from my investment? And we'll have to do another session one day on impact investing, because that's a great topic in itself. Was there any other questions for that?
So short, I probably should take it off as well. Jessica Bell, Melbourne Law School. I was really interested in the theme of governance that's come out pretty strongly today. And I was thinking to what you said, Dana, about fiduciary duties to wider stakeholders. And I was thinking about, Marie, your comment about who gets to be in the room and who gets a seat at the table. And I was wondering if you could expand on what those fiduciary duties to wider stakeholders might look like in practice in this social enterprise model, where they could be involved in decision making perhaps more directly.
Let's go to you, Marie.
I was going to pass it over here. Look, I think that one of the most important dimensions of doing business or connecting with communities is relationships. And without sounding trite, how do you enforce a process, especially if with my AHO hat on, how do we enable or encourage within our company structure a process where we can actually actively give back to our communities? Then you've got to drill down and go, well, which communities specifically are you speaking of, and then actually what does that look like? So thankfully we've got some scope to be able to design that process. However, what could that look like enshrined in a document? But then the other part of me also says, well, our court of law is our marae. So that is the place, our wharenui is the place where we wānanga, we talk, we engage, we connect. And so is the law also a hindrance to our ability to be able to operate as Māori in the way that is natural to us as a culture? But that again is not limiting the reality of other Māori that may not necessarily be engaged within our culture in those ways. So I'd be really interested, Dana, to ask you again, what could that look like from a legal perspective, and then what could New Zealand take from the work that you've done in the States already?
Sure, if I can jump in. So the current models that we have for legal form don't really push fiduciary duty that far. The low profit limited liability company doesn't address fiduciary duty at all. The benefit corporation and Delaware public benefit corporation models do. But the benefit corporation model just requires fiduciaries to consider the interests of other stakeholders. Now, this may be a kind of a nudge, right? That if you're forced to consider others' perspectives, then you're more likely to actually act on them. But there's no kind of social mission prioritization requirement in that statute. The board members might have much longer board meetings where they have to talk about the impact on all these various constituencies, but then they could consistently favor shareholder return every time that they chose to do so. And since the shareholders are really the only ones with any power in the organization, you could imagine directors making that decision. The Delaware statute is a little different and requires fiduciaries to balance the pecuniary interest of the shareholders with the social mission of the organization, but that term balance is not defined, and we don't have any case law. So we don't really know what that's going to mean in practice. My own view is that if you want to really distinguish under American law a social enterprise form that's meaningfully different from the standard business forms that are out there, there would really have to be a kind of on balance, this organization prioritizes its social mission over profit. Not in every single decision they must forfeit return, but on balance and overall, courts would have to make a finding that fiduciaries are behaving in a way that favors social mission over financial return. That would really make for a distinct type of entity that does not exist currently under American law. We don't have any statutes that actually do that yet, but I think that's what would be needed to really brand these organizations who took on that form as meaningfully different in a way that entrepreneurs and investors could rely upon, and so could communities. And I think really the next frontier, and some others in the US are doing some work on this, is how to get beneficiaries involved in that conversation rather than just having directors as the proxy. And I think that's a really important thing. It sounds like in New Zealand, you all have a lot of experience, in creating structures to make that dialogue happen. And so I think that's another place where many in the world can learn from your experiences.
Steven, sorry, can I just quickly add something?
Sure.
So something that I'm finding really interesting that's emerging in Aotearoa is the exploration of Papatūānuku and Mother Earth being a director within a business entity or within a social enterprise. So yesterday I heard a case study of where, excuse me, I may be incorrect, but I thought it was pretty cool, that Tuoi had invited Jim Bolger to sit in a particular board, and his particular viewpoint that he had to hold was from Mother Earth's perspective. So you can imagine all of his experience, but that was the only perspective that he was able to bring to the table. So I thought that was quite cool, but I'm also mindful and aware that there are some brilliant minds at the moment who are looking at Waikato River and Whanganui being turned into legal entities, what that might look like if Oonagh could speak and be a fiduciary interest inside the structure of an entity. So I think that's pretty far out, but I also think it's pretty cool, and it's also responsive to where we need to head as a nation.
Thank you. Yeah, you came to a charity law conference, right? But how many challenges have been laid out here? But hopefully this session has shown you that there's a lot going on in the social enterprise world. And I actually think, if you look at train tracks heading in a direction, charity and what's going on here and social enterprise, we're kind of on the same direction. And that's why we wanted to have this session, so that you all could be challenged to think about it. And I can guarantee you at some point, for those of you charities, somebody's going to say, hey, should we have a social enterprise? What does this mean? How does it fit with what we're doing as a charity? So the thing I'd like to leave with you is that image of the avocado. We're all here. The spirit in this room is how can we help people, empower people in a positive way so that they can plant the seeds and grow the trees that ultimately benefit all of our society. So I just want you to join me in thanking our panel. I think it's been fantastic.